Hello everyone, welcome to A Clear Perspective. I'm Serene. Since December 9th, a breaking news piece about Canada has been spreading like wildfire. Rebel Media, a Canadian conservative media outlet, was the first to report this news, and it was later confirmed by the Canadian Defense Minister. A 34-page secret information document from the Trudeau government revealed that Justin Trudeau invited China's People's Liberation Army (PLA) to send its troops for cold weather training at CFB Petawawa in Ontario. What's more shocking is that the Canadians have been kept in the dark, and Trudeau was angry at the Canadian Armed Forces (CAF) for cancelling the training after China kidnapped 2 Canadians. He demanded that Canadian military does not cancel any more engagements with the PLA without explicit permission first, and that the news of the cancellation had to be told to the PLA gently to let them save face. The report also mentioned that Canada had sent a delegation to China for a propaganda exercise held just months after the kidnapping of the 2 Canadian citizens. In other words, Canada, considered one of America's closest allies, is teaching America's #1 enemy cold weather military tactics. Isn't this a typical case of a family thief? Why do we call him a family thief? Because Trudeau's puzzling and extremely dangerous move was made behind the back of the United States, as well as the other allies of the Five Eye Alliance. At first, it may seem unbelievable, but when you truly think about it, everything starts to make sense. According to the secret document, the Canadian government trained Chinese troops despite America's opposition, but Trudeau still continued. In the end, one of China's military trainings in Canada was cancelled by the Ministry of Defense. On a side note, Trudeau has earned the nickname Little Potato from his trip to China. It is not only because his name sounds similar to the Chinese word for potato, 土豆, but also because he has always acted in a weak and incompetent manner, especially in the diplomatic war with the CCP over the Meng Wanzhou case. He had acted so lamely that he looked like a roasted potato waiting to be cut at will. The Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, is enslaved to the CCP. He fulfilled every request made by the Chinese Communist Party, yet in turn acted cold towards his closest ally, the United States. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that either Trudeau has been benefiting from this deal or he's been blackmailed by the CCP, as Trudeau shouldn't have good reason to be collaborating with the Chinese Communist Party. For the United States, this is a serious issue that concerns national security. Canada and the US has the longest undefended border in the world. If the Chinese Communist Party decided to use Canada as a proxy to do espionage on the US, then would be no opposition to stop them. There have been concerns raised over the training sessions that the CCP has been conducting in Canada on cold climate combat. Those skills could then be used against suppressing the Tibetans or bullying India. In fact, even Canada or the US could end up being targeted. A scholar of the Qing dynasty, Wei Yuan, once proposed the idea that in order to defeat the enemy, you must learn from them first. At that time, it was used in the context of defense. Now, the CCP may be using the same tactic in the context of offensive warfare. This issue involving Prime Minister Trudeau doesn't only concern Canada's interests, but also implies that the American political scene could have been infiltrated by the CCP. Furthermore, important US allies might also be in jeopardy. It is then of no coincidence that on Thursday, December 10th, a secret agreement between the Swiss government and the Chinese Communist Party's Ministry of Public Security was brought to light. The secret deal gave agents from China's Ministry of Public Security free rein to conduct unsupervised operations in the country of Switzerland for up to 2 weeks. Switzerland also agreed to keep the identities of the visiting agents secret. The Swiss government would not interfere, no matter who the CCP sent. That means that the CCP can send anyone over to Switzerland under the guise of being part of the Ministry of Public Security. And they can operate freely for 2 weeks without any Swiss supervision. Even more outrageously, accommodations, living expenses, and the travel costs will all be covered by the Swiss government. And since the agents are designated as unofficial visiting groups, it is likely they were granted normal tourist visas. That means that the CCP agents had free access to the entire Schengen area, including 26 European countries. During the 2-week period, the actual scope of the agents' activities spans almost the entire European Union. Since there are no border controls and these visits are not being supervised, almost the entirety of the European Union was essentially open to the CCP agents. Many of you might be quite confused. Why are these free countries letting their own governments be infiltrated by the CCP? Well, unsurprisingly, it is just good old-fashioned corrupt wealth and power. Although the West is largely democratic, with the process of globalization, a number of transnational monopolistic industry giants have emerged in both the political and the business worlds, as well as the technological and the cultural worlds. If any industry has grown to become a worldwide monopoly, and everyone has to bow to its every whim, those industry elites will wield enormous power, some explicit and some not. When these elite figures from various industries come together to form communities of interest, it seems that they have the entirety of humanity in the palm of their hands. These are the globalists that are repeatedly brought up by Lin Wood and Rudy Giuliani. When their power and wealth have expanded to a global scale, their quest will inevitably tend to achieving a long-lasting, perhaps even permanent monopoly of these resources and the privileges over time. This in itself already shows the characteristics of totalitarianism. In fact, these globalists have already conjured up a whole set of ideologies to support their agenda. They have long since come together and are acting in a coordinated manner. If we pay closer attention, we can see that the ideologies advocated by the left-wing groups and the globalists are extremely similar to that of the CCP and its totalitarian regime. I think this is one of the deeper reasons why there are many white left leaders in the democratic countries who are very pro-communist and pro-China, regardless of their own national interests. Behind their pursuit is both an ideological agreement as well as material interests. From another perspective, the concept of secretly making a fortune is no longer limited to a single political party, a region, or a nation. It has evolved into a global agenda where the tycoons and the elites from different fields and the different parts of the world join hands in secretly making a fortune and seizing the power from the rest of the world. The 2020 US general election can be seen as a practical example of secretly seizing power by these joint interest groups. It is a systematic, organized attack on the entire United States. The Chinese Communist Party, in fact, plays a pivotal role in this system. Many people in Western countries, especially the deep state in the United States, much of their theories and mindset are stemmed from so-called moderate socialism, democratic socialism, and other variants of communism in the West. It is in this context that we see that the communist totalitarianism of the East and the deep state totalitarianism of the West are starting to converge. The term deep state is not new to us. It has long been labeled as a conspiracy theory by the left media, leaving the public virtually unaware of its existence. But it does exist, and it has been confirmed by Di Dongsheng, a Chinese professor who has been very popular on social media recently. Di Dongsheng's two recent videos had a major impact on the public's opinion of President Trump and also analyzed how the Chinese Communist Party infiltrates the West. In his videos, he identified many points that American conservative media have failed to report, such as 1. He confirmed that the CCP's infiltration of Washington's inner circle has been effective, with President Trump being the only exception. 2. He confirmed the collusion between the Bidens and the Chinese Communist Party. 3. He confirmed the existence of the deep state and pointed out that they regard the general population as their slaves. Lastly, he also gave a vivid example of how the CCP used the mafia-like tactics for Xi Jinping's ideas to take root in America. Di Dongsheng summed everything up by describing it as infiltration, using brute force combined with bribery and prostitutes. The Chinese spy Christine Fang, also known as Fang Fang, is a typical example of the CCP's infiltration. The extensive coverage of Fang's case in American media actually revealed a serious problem. The CCP has clear targets and long-term plans for infiltrating American political circles by selecting potential newcomers. Judging from Fang's affair with the rookie Democratic Eric Swalwell, the CCP has been investing in this matter for at least 10 years. If this affair wasn't uncovered, nobody would have thought that a Democrat who serves on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and serves as the chief Democrat on the CIA subcommittee would be under the CCP's influence. If we deduct a bit further, there are certainly others that focus on members of upper echelons, as Fang Fang is only responsible for officials on middle or lower levels. Who are they? How many have already been influenced? It is unknown and could span back for several decades. The Communist Party's infiltration of mainstream media is equally alarming. On Thursday, the National Pulse exclusively reported that the YouTube has hired at least 4 employees with official military and espionage backgrounds from the CCP. These infiltrations by the CCP affect the U.S. on many levels. Compromised political figures in various countries may influence Washington's foreign policy toward the CCP. The media may also be used as a hidden law enforcement agency, denouncing anyone or anything that goes against the CCP's interests. We see this all the time in the US with the so-called political correctness and the social justice warriors. Thus, it's easy to understand why a country like Switzerland would allow itself to be an entry point for the CCP agents, and why Trudeau would rather collaborate with the CCP than work with President Trump. Yesterday, we talked about the Texas Supreme Court case. Now, let's give some updates. On Friday, the Supreme Court has denied the Texas effort that requesting to nullify the presidential elections in 4 swing states. The Supreme Court's order reads, quote, Texas has not demonstrated a judicially cognizable interest in the manner in which another state conducts its elections. All other pending motions are dismissed as moot. Before that, Vice President Pence and 126 Republican members of Congress, including Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, signed an amicus brief in support of the Texas case. In addition, 19 states expressed their support for Texas. Among them, 6 states formally filed to join the lawsuit as plaintiffs. I'm not sure if there is another opportunity to resolve the election dispute via legal means. As we have discussed before, President Trump certainly would have thought about how he is going to react in extreme situations. We will wait and see what Trump will do next. Let's pray for the best for America and the American people. Thank you for watching. That's all for today. Please like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.